Boy.
Good morning.
Hello.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Barely in the dark here.
You got a new setting there.
Well, yeah, I turned around just out of. There's been some robberies in the neighborhood, so I wanted to be able to see the see people sneak up behind me.
What's that's interesting. How what kind of robbers?
No, they buy gun and they hold up the family and tie them up and then take their stuff and then leave.
You know, I had several grade 6 students. More than well, maybe no, it was one girl, but she said it happened to her more than once, and she said she lived out by Fisabad and said
Yeah.
that happened to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it because I think the people who maintain the parcelation, I think they put in cameras where they weren't able to see because we had some areas down at the road where you could just kind of hop the fence. And I think that's what was happening. They would hop the fence and kind of walk up. But I think they have cameras now, so at least they know if someone is trying to hop the fence. So it's not. I'm not as concerned, but I still want to.
Man, that is such a terrifying thing for much less an adult, you know, like a child, the whole family. Oh my God.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's just amazing because it was 2 doors down. It happened, so that was on a Sunday night at like 8 p.m.
What?
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I have all lights on and stuff. Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, it is what it is.
Angela's mother told her that Medellin was getting kind of hot again. Do you like, in other words, in a violent sense? Do you feel that? Like, was that just like? Do you think there's more going on, or is that just a random occurrence?
I don't know. I think I've heard things and stuff, but I mean, nothing too awful. I mean, I don't know anything for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I guess I don't know. I think everything's cyclical on some level. So, so so we'll see. Hopefully, things get better.
Yeah. So if the podcast ends early.
Exactly. Well, because the real fear is that too many people run for president, in this next one, and so and a Maduro type kind of sneaks through.
Oh man, I wasn't even considering that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's still a couple years off of it.
Yeah, it's starting up though, so I think it's 2 years. But again, like when you have too many people in the race, that's when strange things happen.
So, but why would this one be different than the other ones?
I think there's more people that are going to be running than normal, at least for like the sides. I can't remember
Yeah.
the sides or whatever, but I mean, we've seen that before. I think in the States, when you have a bunch of people running for.
The last time they tried to, I don't know if it was like the last time, but in the late '80s they tried to, maybe in the early '80s, the FARC transitioned. They kind of put the guns down and tried to make the transition into politics.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know about this?
No.
There were over 3,000. They formed a political party called I can't remember what it was now. It's pretty well known, but over 3,000 people were assassinated, and like 90% of it was. I have to check the facts, but it was like appalling. Nobody was prosecuted at all. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I got too deep into Colombia. People always talk about how much I love Colombia, and I'm also jaded though because I loved it, but I got too deep into history and the politics,
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It's a very brutal area. It can be a very brutal area.
The reason I was saying that, by the way, is because I don't know if part of the peace agreement was that the FARC got automatic seats in Congress.
Yes, I think that's one of the worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things.
Because the last time they just killed all of them. So I mean, if you're getting assassinated systematically, what are you going to do? You're just going to get assassinated, or are you going to pick up guns again and go live in the jungle?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see how you wouldn't then fight back. So it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, it's complex.
Fascinating
place. It's fascinating.
It is. What's that, Puff? My dog is whining at me. What's going on? He's old. He's 16 years old. He'll turn 17
Wow.
this year. So he's an old man. I think he's blind and deaf. And
hopefully somebody as kind as you will be taking care of us in the same manner if we make it to
exactly.
If we make it to that state.
Yes. We shall see. So India, Vietnam.
Yeah. It was
mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but it's hard to, I've been on a couple of these trips before where I just can't really, it's hard to process it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
But it was really awesome. I mean, that's like the most cheap way of, it was incredible. It was awesome. But it was though. It was, especially India, like Vietnam was really, really cool. It's odd. Like India is so extreme that even though I was in some very remote places in Vietnam with like hill tribes and things like that, it seemed relaxing and almost like vacation compared to India. I would say Vietnam is, at least in this particular trip that I took, is more easily likable. Like India to me seemed like a journey more than a vacation. It was just it was the places I was in were very different, all of them. But like the end of that trip, I was in Varanasi, which is kind of typically known as like the place where they burn bodies on the Ganges.
Mm-hmm.
And that place, a lady that I work with is from there.
Okay, right.
So I met, we had kind of someone show us around a bit, but it was, wow, just a fascinating place. Like everything that all the good and bad of humanity distilled down into one city.
Man, so that just must have been, that's going to take years to process, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so. It was, it's good though. It also made me happy to get back to Korea. Well, to get back to what I call home now, just whatever the nest is.
Gotcha.
Really excited. Like I'm so grateful to be a teacher, man. Like I definitely, not dreading going back. Like we've been at work this week, but I never feel like, oh man, the summer's coming to an end. I'm always like, wow, that was a great summer. It's time to get back to it now.
Yeah. No, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, when it stops being that way, I'll quit doing it for sure.
Yeah, but that's I was reading this Google book, like Work Rules. It's about their HR guy and how Google does like different things than most companies do. how they treat their employees, and they were talking about people's jobs, and people view their jobs as one of three ways, and it was it's something that they have to have. It's just a job, so it pays the bills and everything. And then it's a competition, so they're in it to get promoted and move up and make more money, or a calling. And they said the research that they did was across pretty much any career field. It's a third, mostly. It's like any career field you're in, a third of them thinks it's a job, a third of them is in it for competition, and a third of it's a calling. And then I was thinking, like, teaching has got to be one of the worst professions to be in if it's not a calling.
Yeah.
like if you're just in it as a job or to compete, man, like, that's brutal.
Yeah, you see those people for sure. They're very jaded, but
yeah.
And I probably shift between that. I mean, I'm not saying I've never I've never dreaded going to work. I don't think I knew pretty early on I was going to like it because I was just giving it a shot. When I was like 24, 25, when I started teaching, I didn't know if I was going to like it. But I never dreaded going to work, and I was like, "Oh, that's good." Because as a waiter, I would hate going. I mean, I hated going. I would dread going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've never really, and here at the end of the summer, like, I'm happy to go back again. Like, it's always, but it's cool. I mean, I guess you find something that, especially if you can teach a subject that you're interested in, which I like. All the stuff that I just am into anyway, the stuff I watch on YouTube and the books I read, I teach a subject where I can just one way or another talk about that,
Right.
It's pretty good fit. If I was trying to teach math or something, it would be different, obviously.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it'd be a different thing. And yeah, I'm sure everyone kind of floats in and out. I mean, nothing's ever, constant or concrete or anything.
Exactly.
Life is fluid, much like the Ganges are, right?
Yeah. You went to Mexico, didn't you?
No, we didn't.
Was that the plan, though, originally?
It was the plan. But my stepdaughter, in order to leave Colombia, you have to have permission from both parents.
Uh-huh.
And my stepdaughter's father forgot, so to get the permission. So we're going in October, so not a big deal.
All right. Yeah.
Not a big deal.
Anything eventful happened while you were in Colombia over the summer?
A bunch of, just little stuff. It was a great summer. It was one of my most relaxing summers because we didn't go anywhere. So it was just kind of hanging out with kids, and just we bought a playground for the kids for Amelia's birthday. So they were all ecstatic, and they've been loving that. It has like a couple swings and seesaw and slide and stuff. So that was cool. And then I rescued a bat from their room and had to get that outside. So that was. I have more experience with wildlife now and doing that thing, so that feels good. I'm like an expert at doing birds now. There was one the other day. I just came down and grabbed it and then took it out the window. It was pretty great. That's been something I've learned. And then I was trying to think of anything else like big that happened, but I don't think it was just a nice, loving family summer. It was just very fun, and we got into a good groove, and after the kids went to bed, we do board games and just have a good old time. So yeah, it was great.
I'm looking forward to that again. Like that, it's been so long since I've had a summer where I didn't travel somewhere. And actually, a lot of times you end up being tired at the end of what should be a restful period. I don't feel that way right now. I mean, I feel, even though I traveled, we tried to take it slow, but nonetheless, it's not the same as staying at home and just having a rhythm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you do India first and then Vietnam, or I can't remember what the order?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that helped out then with the feeling of relaxedness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you said you were with a tribe or something in Vietnam, or?
Yeah, like they're called hill tribes, but they're across. We saw some in Thailand as well when we were there in December. But yeah, they're agricultural people, but they still wear like traditional dress, and I think most of them have like animist beliefs. Just really incredible. It's called the Hai Giang province, and it's the extreme north. It's the most northern part of Vietnam, and it's on the border with China. And it's very mountainous as well, like huge canyons and soaring peaks, but it's all green, and really just it's just so nice. Because I love anything that faintly reminds me of Colombia. I love it. Like I liked Colombia tremendously. Like you know what I mean. Like so, I was happy there. Like I loved my life in Colombia. Like as far as everybody just finds their own groove, but for me, it was having a motorcycle and just driving around, like just little things like that. So
Right.
that's basically what I've tried to recreate whenever I can in Asia, is finding places that are where I can rent a motorcycle and travel
Mhm.
through mountains. And so that's what I was doing up there. And of course, Angela was with me, and we just went into some places. The scenery was incredible, but then we would go into places that were very remote, but they might have a place or two where you could stay, like a hostel type thing.
Okay.
Something. I mean, it's not. It would be like sometimes it would just be like a house where they let you stay, like a family.
Gotcha.
But the style of housing there is such that it's like a big open room, and there might be several people sleeping on the floor, like in a big
Okay.
area.
Yeah.
And the people are just incredibly friendly. It's just it's like stepping back in time some ways. It's always great to see something that hasn't been homogenized.
Of course. Yeah. And then you said that what kind of beliefs did they have?
I think they're animists.
And what is that?
Well, as I understand it, it's just like, you believe that the tree has a spirit and the river has a spirit.
Oh, all right.
Basically what I think it's, if I understand correctly, it's what all humans were before organized religion, that kind of the original beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we desensitize ourselves and are able to murder in the environment.
Oh man, I gotta send you a video I was just watching too. Have I told you about this guy Alan Watts I've been listening to recently?
You've talked to him about a few times, because he does like the Buddhism stuff. Like yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just found another one of his yesterday. Man, it was great. Just him talking about how there's no way for us to fix our ecological problem until we fix our thinking problem.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is he a philosopher?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know if that's his title, but he certainly is.
Maybe a polymath? Have you heard that?
That's someone who's skilled in many areas?
Many areas, yeah. That's what we used to be.
Yeah.
That's what we used to aim for. So
until
organized education came along, then I think that got rid of that.
So what are we talking, like mid-1800s?
Yeah, I think so. Well, let me back that up. I don't think everybody was a polymath. I think probably the upper class or whatever were polymaths.
Wasn't that kind of I don't know if this is true. I got this off of, this is so weird that I remember this from yours. I got that off of this idea off of Home Improvement. We were attempting to go out and talk to the guy behind the wall.
Yes, Wilson, yeah.
Wilson. And I remember Wilson saying that a Renaissance man was one that was skilled in many, many different areas. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I think I probably heard the same thing from him. So I believe it.
Yeah, me too. If it's not true, I don't want to know. Polymath, that's what that is.
Yeah, polymath. When you were talking about that tribe in Vietnam, we were listening to this podcast, Invisibilia, on emotions or whatever, and how like they're not. We experience, maybe I talked to you about this before with the vision and everything, and like how if we experience emotions differently. Like not everyone feels love the same way, not everyone feels sadness the same way. It all is based on our life experiences and how those have been defined for us. Okay. And then but there was a tribe, I don't know if it was in Vietnam or not. It was somewhere in Asia, maybe Philippines. Maybe that makes more sense. They had an emotion that this anthropologist had never seen before. And it was when something tragic had happened, they would almost as a tribe, it would pass amongst them. And I can't remember what the name was, so I apologize for that. But it was like this energy, and then that was kind of how they dealt with grief, was this energy, and then they would wail, and then and it would just kind of, and the only way they could stop it, at least how they grew up, or how the tribe kind of came along, was to cut off a human head.
What?
Yeah, that made it end.
Oh, in other words, it was literally passing, and then you had to slice a head off so it wouldn't.
And then when the whole, because it was contagious, so when the whole tribe had it, they had to do something to get rid of it, and then the thing that worked was cutting off a human head. So they would go to a different tribe, find someone, and cut their head off.
Oh man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. But then you see that's like that, and then this guy later, it's an interesting thing, but his wife dies tragically, and years later he experiences this feeling. And so he would have to he didn't cut anybody's head off, but he would pull over the car and just wail. And he would have to, he said it felt like lightning that was inside his body, and that he would just have to kind of make this moaning kind of sound for 30 minutes. And then he would drive back home. But he said he thought it was a much better way to deal with grief than what we do. Like, because it was, you actually turned grief into like this physical thing that you were doing instead of just having it happen to you, kind of thing. So it was pretty fascinating. That just
how do we deal with it typically?
I think most people ignore it for a while, and then maybe you get sad about it and stuff instead of. I don't know how. Like, there's the 7 stages, right? The acceptance is the last one. So.
Okay. The only problem with that tribal system is that it's never ending then, because then the next tribe feels grief and then they got to go find.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there's the catch. You should hopefully find some other way to not cut a head off.
I wonder why. I wonder if something similar to that is why we used to do animal sacrifice as a species. I'm saying, that's pretty common in more than just. Is it, I don't know if that's true or not. Does that manifest in different religions around the world? I mean, I think the Aztecs were doing that, right?
I would imagine.
And then obviously in the Judeo-Christian origins, they were sacrificing things.
Yeah, we like a good sacrifice. But yeah, that'd be interesting because maybe that's why we did it, and then we lost that feeling, kind of thing, or emotion. That emotion. That's just interesting. There's emotions in the world that we don't know about. Crazy.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I wonder what else. I wonder what there is that I don't know about. Like, does this book deal with that? Like, does it talk about the different emotions?
I'm sure his. I mean, they're kind of doing a the way they call it a compilation album for their season, and so every episode is going to go around how, like, this different way to look at emotions, and how like what's really happening to us, and how we may have it wrong, kind of thing. So this is kind of different way to look at things. So it's been pretty interesting.
How we might have what wrong, like our interpretation of an emotion, or what?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember the like, and does things happen to us? Oh, I'm trying to remember. This poor guy, this poor trucker. This family kind of drove into him, and he wound up killing this like 3-year-old girl, and like he saw her dead body and stuff, and it just destroyed him, and like and he couldn't get back to his normal life just because he kept obsessing over the girl dying, and then his ability, because his belief set was that he is a man and he should be in control, and so because that was his belief set, and then you had this thing come in that was out of control, he still blamed himself, thinking that he should have been able to do something. And so like it totally ruined his life for a long time. So he wound up suing the family of the kid that died, which is just, I mean, like, that's just incredible. It was a really tragic story. But man, I'm trying to think, like, I think I'm forgetting the punchline, which is awful. But it just turns out that it's like those feelings were always there within him. And it wasn't really this is awful. I can't remember.
That's all right.
I'm making things awful. I wasn't prepared. I should have.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right.
That's what happens when you drive and listen to stuff. You only get like 5% of it. And then you just talk about stuff. I shouldn't have even brought it up.
Hey, guess what I just heard? Like, I think I heard it this week or last week. YouTube banned Jordan Peterson.
Yes, they did.
Isn't that crazy?
God, I find it fascinating that people are turning him into some like right-wing zealot nut kind of thing.
Well, I think what's terrifying is the left is becoming fascist-like. It's not a diversity of opinion. It's our opinion or fuck you.
Yeah. Did you see the whole memo thing? Did you see that?
No.
So they had an engineer post on their forum this kind of 3,000 word diatribe saying that the reason there weren't enough women in like the technology industry is because they're women, and that there's genetic differences and kind of this. I heard this.
I thought this. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I don't know the details.
Sorry. Yeah, well, and so they fired him. Like it wasn't like, let's talk and let's, we disagree and let's, argue respectfully and learn from one another. It was just like, you're gone because you broke company policy.
Right.
So it's really, I mean, it's just, it's getting, pretty interesting. Yeah.
Aren't there ISIS videos on YouTube?
I would imagine, yeah. But see, then that wouldn't you wouldn't be culturally sensitive, probably.
Well, I'm like, get out of here, man. Like I was talking. Yeah, it's so crazy. I was talking with some coworkers today, and then also talking with Angela. Like, we don't want to offend anyone, and we want to be pro everything. And you can't. Some things are. That doesn't mean you can't love everybody. But if we're talking about ideologies, it's hard to be all these things at once. And I'll give you an example. Like, and I'm not saying that I know. These are questions that I have. This is what I was telling my coworkers because I'm always terrified not to be politically correct. But you have to feel safe enough to be able to ask a question. If you're going to educate me, you got to let me. You have to let me ask you these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for example, we were talking about my coworker said something about cisgender, and I was like, I don't know what that is, and she's like, well, it just means it's more or less the opposite of transgender. In other words, your anatomy matches your conception of your gender. In other words, just what we would more or less consider traditional, I suppose.
Okay.
I guess. I mean, that's my interpretation of it, right?
Uh-huh.
And so we were talking, and but we were talking about feminism, right? Because it seems odd that, not saying that they can't exist together, but it seems odd to be feminist, but then say that a person who is a biological male but identifies as female can be truly female.
Uh-huh.
And I'll give you a couple of reasons why we were saying this. And we weren't saying that you can't. It was just questions that I had, right?
Right.
But one is, well, here's how I started it. If I identify as a black man, do you think that would offend people?
I would imagine so, but
I would have to believe that in the politically correct culture of the U.S., if I said that I am a black man, no one would take me seriously, and rightfully, there's no way that I could really understand what it's like to be a black man.
Right.
I mean, all the history and even what's going on currently, there's no way, right?
No.
So in a similar context, if I'm a feminist, how could I say that this man can really understand what it's like to be a female when they've never gone through any of the humiliation that a woman's gone through, or had to go through a menstrual cycle, or been embarrassed about being 13 and having their period and people make fun of them? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or being leered at by men.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then a similar example that I was giving was, again, just talking about being feminist, but at the same time, I don't know if there's a term. I'm not saying being anti-gender rights. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just talking about this. I don't have a label for it, is what I mean. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But equally, if I were Kill, this white boy from South Carolina, if I were to say that I identify as a black male, and then I began to act out the most offensive stereotypes of what I think a black male is,
right,
how would that be received in the politically correct culture?
Yeah, I don't think it would go over well.
But if I say that if I identify as a female, and then I put on high heels and a skirt and act super my concept of what a stereotypical female is, how is that not offensive? Especially if you're a feminist, I'm saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, that I don't know. And what did they have thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, well, we were both just like, I mean, everybody wants to be politically correct. We don't want to be. And I think the bigger concern is you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You want to love everybody, but these are still questions. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but like if we don't ever talk about it, then you don't really love the person, right? Because it's through understanding and kind of trying to tackle what you believe and understand is how you truly love that person, kind of thing. So if you never kind of grapple with this stuff and you just accept what everybody else tells you to accept, then I think that's what causes all the animosity and the hate and they're like, no, I don't want to accept this, so I'm going to pretend to accept it, but in my heart I don't. So and I will do everything I can under the radar to show how displeased I am with things. And that was this thing on this Invisibilia thing again. I do remember this part, so I will say that. This guy was talking about racism. A black man from, I can't remember where he was, but he went to England, and he said he couldn't figure out what was different. Like he felt weird, like something was off. And so what he had noticed was what he realized was when he went to restaurants, the maitre d' and the waiter, and he was with a white friend, they treated him with complete equality, and he had never run into that before. because like in the States, there's always some sort of power thing. So if he was with a white person, then the waiter would just look at the white person and talk to them, kind of thing. And so he was just like, he couldn't believe it. And so he's a preacher, and he tried to kind of bring that back and start some programs to try and help people out, and kind of, because they were talking about like racism and stuff is a learned thing. Like you can unlearn it. You just, because we're not born that way. Like you don't, you're not born with hate and these beliefs in your heart. You learn that stuff. And so if you're able to learn it, you are able to unlearn it, but it's super, super hard. Like unlearning is one of the hardest things you can do. So yeah, no, I'd really recommend it. It's an interesting series on just all these kind of different things, and you detect when something happens and you reflect on why it's happening. Like where does your stereotype come from? Like why do you see someone doing something or looking some way and think, oh, he is or she is that? And then what happens is, because we're so great at confirming our own bias, we don't even find out if we're right or not. but we feel better. We think we're right, and that's enough. And so it just confirms that bias. And so it's really interesting. Just kind of where our beliefs and our prejudices come from. And so it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's a, but then again, it's also weird it's weird how separated we've just made ourselves just through history. It's just like, we are different, I'm part of my group and you're part of your group, and we're all kind of different, instead of just kind of looking at each other as humans and trying to figure all this shit out.
I just had this crazy idea pop in. I'll share this with you, see what you think about this. I think our ego is a stereotype. And I don't mean just like racial and cultural. I mean that what you call Ben and what I call Kill, and everybody else who has a name that's, like a label for their ego. You perceive yourself as a stereotype because you only hold on to certain aspects of who you are. You don't hold the whole picture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that idea of stereotyping is so deeply programmed. Even our identity is a stereotype of, we have a massive spectrum of behaviors, but what I call Kill, whatever, I've created this idea of myself that I only identify certain things as what I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's 100% true. Because that's why that post stress happens disorder, is because you know that you are Kel, and then you go to war and you do things that Kel would never have done, and it's really hard. It's really hard to keep those two ideas in your head, and that causes complete stress. And so your brain can't handle it, because you're like, I am this really nice person from Iowa that, has never done anything wrong. And then I went over there and I did just awful, awful things. So it's really hard to kind of keep those two concepts in your head. So I think that's, we don't know ourselves, or what we're capable of.
And I don't even know, like, going back to like the idea of like, is transracial? Is that even an idea? Like transgender? I probably is. I don't know, but
I don't know.
And I don't know what I think either. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, because I do think that gender is, in many ways, a social construct, right? Like, I mean, what a man means is different. Some things overlap per culture, but it's different by culture too. Like,
but there are some biological differences, aren't there? Like with the hormones and everything, and how that affects you and how you behave. But I don't even know, really.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I always hear, like, when I've heard those Jordan Peterson podcasts, I didn't know if they meant anatomy or if they meant like what would you call it? Like biochemically? Is that what hormones are?
Right.
Biochemically.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say about that, but I don't know. I feel like I need to talk to it. I need a person who's transgender that is comfortable enough to talk about it. And
well, I think from what that Jordan Peterson, he would always talk about how people who are transgender aren't really part of this movement. Like they're, I think again, I don't know really. I haven't done any investigating, but I wonder if that's how accurate that is. How they're more like, I'm just dealing with my life, and I kind of want to do my thing and kind of understanding who I am and kind of move forward instead of getting all behind what's happening kind of socially. Kind of thing.
It's so interesting, this other idea too, like just I'm kind of playing back with the feminism idea. And I guess I'm saying feminism because people we have an obsession with being politically correct, you know, and we don't want, again, that's what I was saying. We don't want to offend anyone. So we want to be everything. I want to be pro everybody. And and saying that, I'm not saying that we should be anti anyone. I'm not saying that, but
yeah.
If you had like ideology, I don't know if feminism is an ideology. What did you say? I don't know if that's the right terminology, but
I think it depends on how I think you can turn anything into an ideology. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But like one thing that my friend was saying at work was that she identifies as a very strong feminist, you know, and she was saying that what she thought that she was fighting for years was to broaden what it meant to be female. Like you could be anything, a woman can be anything. But it seems now if you go too far, like I guess what I'm trying to express is that if you become so masculine, now you're supposed to just transition and say, well, I'm a man, I'm not a female. When she said that the idea would have been, no, I am a female. This is female also. This can also be feminine, you know?
Huh. And so is she kind of constructing this idea that if you go too far, then society is now telling you that you should just become a man kind of thing? Is that what you were?
I think that's, if I understood her, I think that's what she was saying.
Yeah. Huh.
But I mean, I think we're all just trying to understand, like, you know,
yeah.
That's what, like, that's the scary thing that I've got, and it seems like there's a culture beginning that if you even, I mean, I've seen it from kids that I've taught previously in South Carolina, and when people are on, I've seen their responses to other members that are talking to them like on Facebook, and they're just like completely militant and like not compassionate in any way. They just say you're stupid, and like in my judgment of the comments that were going on in this particular conversation, it didn't seem like the person that they were calling stupid was trying to be hateful or disrespectful or anything. They were trying to understand, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's also easier to just call someone stupid when you yourself can't explain. Yeah. Or you have, you know, and I don't know if that's what happened, but I know that certainly would be an easy way to just move on from it, you know?
Yeah. I always go back to that Bertrand Russell article about, or his thoughts about, like, if you get angry, like, rethink your argument, you know? Like, if you get that upset about something towards someone, like, you know, really deeply look at what you believe in and why you think that way. Because it could be an indicator that you really haven't thought things through, that you're just following, you know, the herd, and you're just, you know, you haven't really thought about things. So I don't get not talking to people about stuff. I've never, there's so many things like that humans do that I don't know if I'm going to sound like I don't know what now, but like, just I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand giving people crap over their past. I've never understood that. I've never understood why you would judge somebody, but for what they did. I was like, you have no idea of that person's life and what they did. And if you were in the same situation, you would do the same thing. Like, well, how on earth could you possibly, like, when you're dating someone, you find out they slept with someone, you're like, oh, how could you do that? Well, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? How could you possibly be upset about that?
You betrayed me 5 years before I knew you.
Right. I've never understood that, ever. And then, like, people get all nervous and they don't want to tell people things because it's like, it's just judgment and everything. It's just,
yeah. Well, it takes courage to have these conversations. It's easier to not, you know. I mean,
well, yeah, I'm totally nervous right now, and I you know, who knows who listens to this stuff.
Yeah. Well, with you and I talking, it's easy. But yeah, I mean, that's why, like, I'm always saying, like, I don't know what I believe, but educate me. Like, but I mean, I love everybody. I'm not saying, but I'm also a thinker, and I'm gonna think about things, you know. Yeah. Like, I think that I could. Okay, if I am feminist, and I agree that a woman can be what society would call very masculine, and in other words, okay, if I'm a feminist, I can say, well, I mean, what does a feminist mean? But I'm just saying, in this stereotypical feminist image that I'm describing, I could not shave my legs and I could not shave my arms and be very female and be powerful, right?
Right.
But then also with this concept of transgender, if I identify as a female, are you still with me so far? Because I'm about to make a point. Could I not just keep the name Kel and not be exactly as I am now and say, no, but I'm actually female. My genitalia doesn't matter. And I don't believe in the gender stereotype of what a female is. I'm just telling you that I am female and I identify as female. I mean, I think that with this logic, you could do that, couldn't you?
I mean, it seems so. It seems logically sound.
Maybe someone will explain that to me. And if that's the case, I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but there's just some things floating around that seem illogical to me. Like, there seems like there's conflicting ideas. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but then, like, how, like, your point originally was, then how could you understand what it's like. You understand what it's like to be Kel.
Like, I think I do.
No, well, yeah. I mean, come on. And you understand what it means to be a white guy from South Carolina,
Yeah.
that lived your life. Like, but so how would you possibly understand what it's like to be a woman? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I really. That's an interesting point. I don't know how you could, without experiencing. And I guess that's why because you know what it's like to be a transgender. I don't.
Right. But and I'm just saying, and I think the greater point that I'm making is not even just that; it's how absurd people would stare at me for one thing and probably judge me.
Yes. Yeah.
And probably the same group of people who would say that I'm using cultural appropriation and being offensive to black people if I said I was trans race and I was actually a black man, and then I had just did the most offensive things that you associate with the stereotype of whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the negative stereotypes of black males are. But then again, just harping on that and then doing the same thing with females, like that same group of people who would call me a bigot and absurd would protect my right if I said that I identify as a woman and then acted out the stereotype of what a woman is, which is what feminists fight against a lot of times, is the stereotype of what a woman is supposed to act like and how she should be.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting.
And I don't know what my point is. These are just, for some reason, this is sticking. You know what I mean? This is like something that's going on here. I don't know. I don't even know what it is yet, but it seems important.
Yeah, it does. And it's weird because we've made race into something that's completely separates us. That I think some people think race means species on some level, like that you are a different person. Whereas that, I mean that though, I talked about that map where it talked about skin color and where that comes from. And it was just like how close you were to the equator, way back when, and how your tribe kind of got pale or got darker or whatever like that. So it's just, I don't know, just everything's so complex. And like you said, it doesn't feel safe to talk about or to kind of try and think about or get some help in understanding.
And I guess it's all reactionary, isn't it? Like it's pendulum swinging, because I obviously see the super, I guess you would call it right wing, I don't know, but like obviously people would be terrified to be transgender or to be gay or anything like that in the very staunch traditional culture. So I guess the pendulum swings the other way, and it's like we're not accepting anything that contradicts this side of it, but that in itself is a contradiction. It seems like you have to, the ante to that super conservative, unaccepting culture is that you have to be willing to talk with people and accept diverse opinions. Even we have to find a way to coexist. That's what it's not that we're going to convert everybody. We got to find a way to be with each other,
Yeah. And I think that now that's just harder and harder, especially because we have that good old internet. So we just to confirm everything we believe in all the time. So,
man, that's dangerous, isn't it? I just keep seeing more and more videos that I love. They're not giving me anything else. My ego's getting stronger. They're not giving me anything outside of what I'm interested in already.
Yeah, never. Why would they? But yeah, no, I mean, it takes so much power to do, like willpower. I mean, if you talk about your awakening and like realizing yourself, like that has to be the ultimate. Is like really consciously going, okay, I don't agree with something, and I'm going to take the time to look at it and kind of digest it and try and get to understand it, kind of thing. So because I don't do that.
Like what? Give me if you see something that you don't agree with, and then try to.
Well, like I don't actively go out to like my views on discipline and classroom management, and I don't actively go out and read books that tell me to punish kids and how to write their names on the board and check it off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I don't read those books, but like that's something like I don't like that Charles Darwin. Like he said whenever he found someone who disagreed with him, he would go read, so he understood their points better than his, kind of thing. So he would. I've tried to practice that, but it's not a natural thing. I mean, not reading whole books, but sometimes I'll just check a news source that I perceive as biased or.
Yeah, but even I don't do that consistently. I don't know. Like now, every time I read U.S. media, I'm just like, my God, it's all the same. Even the stuff that's supposed to be central. like being in Korea, man. Like every time I'm reading NPR, I'm like, why are you building this war propaganda? You're doing the exact same thing that every other. It's absurd. Like it's a box, and they give you this idea. I don't know who they are, but there's this idea that that there's diversity within it, and it's like it doesn't matter which sites you go to, they're all pumping out this war propaganda.
Yep.
I just saw this because it's absurd to me. They just keep building up this North Korea thing worse and worse and worse, and then they had it. And I'm saying this because this all happened this week. I saw an article, headline. It was before Trump made his comments this week, but it was right before Trump made his comments. I think it was the day before, so it must have been Tuesday or Monday, I think. And I don't remember exactly how the headline went, but it was something very sensationalized to the extent of Kim vows destruction, something like that, something that strikes terror, right?
Right.
And I read the article, and there were a lot of positive points in that article. They talked about how in the Philippines, some diplomat from North Korea and South Korea shook hands briefly. That hasn't happened in a long time.
Right.
How come that's not the headline?
Yeah.
So then, like the next day or the next day, this is still just before Trump's comments, and another headline says something like 65% of Americans now perceive North Korea as a major threat. Well, that's a fucking shock since you've just been pumping out headlines like this for the past 8 months. Who could believe that they see it as a major threat when you keep saying he launched another missile? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so I don't know if it's purposeful propaganda. I'm not going to be a conspiracy guy and say that it's all part of this, massive complex where they're purposely doing it.
Yeah. But
it serves as propaganda nonetheless,
Well, I think it's something that we do, It's like now it's the news and they want clicks. That you want clicks. So we have never been interested in happy stuff. Ever. Like news and everything. It's always, and that's where they're talking about the stereotypes come from. It's like we don't get to see good things about people. We get to see bad stuff. And I think, and so that just warps your view of what's happening and who is what kind of thing. And so, I don't know North Korea at all. Like my only perception of North Korea is through the media for my lifetime. And so, I have an idea of North Korea in my head, and I've never even been there. I've never even read about it, like, a book from a historian or whatever. Which I didn't read the article. What a classic move. I just read the title because I clicked on it and I was like, oh God, it's like 20 minutes. I can't do it. It was saying how historians usually make violence in the past, like talk about how the history of violent. Like, oh God, what am I trying to say? History wasn't as violent as historians try to say it was. Like, because they're just trying to, I think that's clickbait, they're just trying to get people interested because we love things.
History's one giant war, isn't it?
Right. That's it. That's all they're having.
This is like, you're just making me realize this, but since history is one giant war, we perceive the past as that, we perceive human nature as that, and then we believe that, and then that determines the future where we're going. Like, that's crazy. That's deep. That's meta conscious or meta history or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll find it. I'll send you the article if you have the 20 minutes.
I saw this graffiti years ago in Europe. Like it was like a stencil. I was in Innsbruck, Austria. I remember it because it's kind of a university town. And I actually showed this to students before and what we were just saying, I think this is what they were saying, but it said the history of Europe is an illusion of the past. Oh, no, sorry, the future. The future of Europe is an illusion of the past. And I don't know if that's, who knows what that person was saying, but I've always tried to figure out what that meant. And right now, what we just said. Yeah. Yeah, like history, like the history as in the written supposed record that goes on is just like media, isn't it? It shapes our view of what we think happened. And it's certainly probably 5% of a 100% picture. Right?
Yes, maybe 5%. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and then it's so. I've heard before like these theories that your past determines your future. Like the other one I heard was like your future choices determine your past kind of thing. Like that was kind of a parallel universe kind of theory.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, so it is. I mean, but who knows? So like the end has already happened, so we're just leading up to it. Like we're
you're in this present moment, though.
You are. That's the trick, It's just like you're talking about. It's like are you awake and are you paying attention and are you kind of in the moment, And how are you choosing to experience life? Like if you have a choice, because some people don't.
and that's, I've tried to, like, I've had these realizations before, like what you're talking about, like, I've tried to understand what they mean by your future can change your past or something, whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can't.
But I understand it like in a very rational sense, just in the case of, okay, this thing happened to me.
Uh-huh.
So if I go down this path, this is what it meant to me. But if I go down this path, this is what it meant to me. So I started down this one path, but now I've decided I'm not going to go down this path. So actually, in the long run, this is actually what it meant to me. So it is kind of, in some way, it is changing your past.
Yeah, or your definition of your past or your understanding of your past, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's cool. I get that. That seems reasonable. Oh man, but yeah, I don't know. We're in some stuff.
What do you like? You mean like politically or what?
Humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't really. I try not to look at news anymore. I really just try to just get out. I try to like I haven't been on Facebook in forever.
Yeah.
Just because that was.
God, it sucks. It's terrible. If you and I weren't sending messages, I'd be on there very seldomly. Like, but I'm kind of happy because I used to just check it like 100 times a day. You know, getting that dopamine shot. I hated it.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, and I would love to talk to somebody who understands that brain chemistry more than I do about, like, it is interesting, like, how our brain has developed that what gives us dopamine. Like broccoli doesn't cut it. Right? Broccoli doesn't shoot dopamine in our brain, but a potato chip does. You know, like potato chips do, snacks do. So like why is that? I guess, but like, so is that like so that we are protected in our body? So like we want those fatty foods so that we are insulated and can protect ourselves. So it's kind of like a protection thing then?
Well, I mean, if we're just talking about the diet thing, and I've never associated the consumption of fat with dopamine, though I'd say that makes sense. I'd have to fact check that. But what I have understood from some things I've read, again, it sounds logical, is that fat was such a commodity, like you just didn't get it often.
Gotcha.
So I guess, you know, I don't know how these mechanisms work, but supposedly we evolved to crave it because it wasn't actually in great abundance.
Gotcha.
So it was advantageous that we would love it, and when we did find it, we would consume as much of it as possible.
Right.
Because it's an important thing, and it's hard to get it from plants. I mean, you know, like you have like avocados and things like that, which have really high fat content, but other than like meat, it's hard to get a lot of fat, I think. So
okay, that makes sense.
That's what I've heard.
Okay. I'm signed on for that.
And we were, and I guess in that context, you never could have enough of it for it to be a problem because there wasn't much of it. And now it's so abundant. Yeah, it's just like it's pure heroin. Like dopamine is like a narcotic, isn't it? Like, I mean, you can't even. Yeah.
Well, you have the same area. It's the same thing that when you do drugs and alcohol, it's the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important for like those 12 to 25-year-olds. Well, really more earlier, that 12 to kind of 17, that they don't get into drugs and stuff because we have that. Have I talked to you about pruning? What your brain does?
You have, but let's go through it again. Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so your brain, you know, elementary school year up until you're 12, 11-ish, your brain just makes connections. Like all your experiences kind of connect to each other, and the connection remains no matter what, kind of thing. But then when your brain starts going through upgrade, it starts to prune, and so what that means is what you don't do, you lose. Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe you really liked reading up until you were 12, and so you have this really strong reading synapse that's connected to a bunch of other ones, but then something happens, you just don't read anymore. Well, that synapse gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and if you don't do it at all, then it just disappears. And so then you really struggle. Well, you wouldn't be illiterate, but you just wouldn't be a strong reader, and like you wouldn't do that. And that's why it's so hard to be like an outstanding athlete or a musician if you don't start that stuff early enough, kind of thing, or if you don't really focus your practice during that time frame. So if you do drugs, because your brain is trying to figure, it's so hyperdrived anyway when it comes to dopamine, it's like, oh, awesome, let's really do a lot of this stuff. And so you really strengthen that drug synapse while destroying all the other ones. And so you lose like years of learning. And so I've always wondered, like, would I have made different choices growing up if you would have told me that I will not be as I don't want to say smart, but like intelligent. Like my brain won't function to its highest level if you drink. You know what I mean? If you go to college and drink your ass off, like your brain won't function up to its ability. I wonder if that would have made any difference to me. You know what I mean?
Until the pretty girl wanted you to take a
shot.
Then you'd have done
it. So true. So yeah. I don't know, you know, it's really interesting what we do to ourselves. So.
Do you know anything about that, by the way, about like binge drinking even at like college age kids? Do you know anything about the effects of that?
I mean, it's got to do something because your brain's still not set. So
I don't remember if you and I were talking about this or not. I hope so you can correct me because I've lost it now, but I definitely heard it from a podcast that up to like your frontal cortex isn't fully online until you're like 25 or something.
25, yep, exactly.
And that's right in the air. You're just binge drinking, just pouring stuff in.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah.
It's a really bad habit to get into.
That's so interesting. Like things were happening to me when I was like 21, 22, and I was having these like what I perceived as like religious experiences. And it was probably something just going on. Like I was probably just getting all these connections. Like I just feel like almost like enlightened or something. It's hard to explain. I didn't understand what was happening, but it was like, wow, it was like definitely was like experiencing like I had more. I don't know if I've ever used the word power, but something was going on. I felt like there was a definite change taking place, you know?
So all of the experiences you were having connected in some way that kind of enlightened your brain kind of thing.
Well, I don't know. Like I was trying to, I was trying to understand it through the avenues that my culture provided.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I saw it as like I didn't know what was happening, but yeah, just something happened. I became very interested. Like I didn't read till that's what I was thinking about it when you said the reading synapse. I mean, obviously I read in school. I mean, I was literate, but I never read a book until I was like 20, I think. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I went through high school without ever having read a book. I'm saying started a book and finished a book. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And of course now as an adult I read all the time, but I don't. And that was those types of big changes were happening at that age, like around 20 or 21. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I stopped liking alcohol. I still like to have a beer probably just about every day, but I don't like getting drunk, man. Like, and obviously in college, I'm not gonna say at 20 and 21, I still binge drank. But I'm saying by the time I was 25, I was like, man, this is just not me. Like I had a stronger sense of who I wanted to be and what I was, and it just I didn't need to drink to be cool or to prove my masculinity anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I was gonna say? Oh yeah, but like, what's cool though about the brain is like you're saying, it's like just because you do miss out on that stuff, like you don't read in high school, doesn't mean you can't then strengthen it later. You know. So I was hoping I wasn't communicating that because it just means that if you had read through high school, you would be a stronger reader now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there would be that.
I mean, that's the self-discipline thing, isn't it? Like, that's why I think some people would disagree with me, but I have this self-delusional idea that has proven itself true over and over that I can learn to do just about anything. I think everybody can, personally.
Of course.
But it's like that synapse thing. Like if you haven't done it, you got to have enough of self-encouragement and maybe external encouragement to build it. It's going to be difficult. You've never done it before. You're going to have to build that synapse. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought about a lot of people with like language. I just think some people get so embarrassed maybe, or just they give up on it and they say, I'm just not good at languages. And I'm like, but I mean, maybe that's true, but I just think everybody could do it if you're willing to put it in. And I'm not saying that everyone's going to get to the same level. I've heard people who's like, people from North America who speak I knew a guy there in Colombia who spoke native Spanish. It was incredible. I don't know if we would all get to that level, but I think everyone can learn to be fluent. And especially in a language like Spanish, which is pretty similar to ours,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's been the myth for so long, and like you, when you were talking about, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist here. I don't think there's some person that's like designing things, and like, like, all this stuff is going to happen unless it's the computer programmer we talked about last time. If it's them, I get it. Like maybe it is the simulation and fine. Like maybe that makes sense then. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's it. Punto. But that was the myth. The myth was that you are only good at one thing and that's what you're going to do, and don't bother trying to learn other stuff. And and it's really sinister. It was a sinister myth, and it's just not true. There's no science that backs up that you can't learn. It takes, like you said, it's hard, it's difficult, it's rigorous. Like but if you put in the time, you will learn something. Like there's no doubt now.
I mean,
even if you're old, even if you're 50, you can do it. Like your brain can constantly grow and it can constantly change. Not as much as when you're in your 12 to 25. Like that's the best time of your brain for some things, for strengthening all that stuff. But like there's just no evidence that backs up this idea that we can't learn stuff. But why was, like, again, I don't think that was someone came up with that on their own, but like that was something that society wanted to happen, on some level, or we just, I don't know what it is. We just, there's so many negative things that we believe in and kind of think are right, kind of thing. And I just keep going back. It's like, you're a historian. Okay. I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if I've asked you this before, but it's like our present generation, like of adults, are so inept at dealing with our current present. Like we don't have the skills. We don't have the skills to look at the internet and understand and have that dopamine. And like, I think we're completely lost when it comes to being able to deal with our present. And I was wondering if, like, all the really awful things that we know about in history, that's all history is, right? It's just awful stuff. It's just awful stuff. Did it happen when the current generation was not prepared for their present? Do you know what I mean?
The terrible wars and things like that, like the calamities.
Yeah, was that like just that the level of sophistication that the present was calling for, most people they didn't have it. They didn't have the skills to deal with it.
Perhaps. I mean, that's one thing that it does make me think of is I've always remembered, like, I can't say it perfectly, I can give you the gist of it, but it was Aldous Huxley, and it was the preface to this, or foreword to Brave New World.
Okay.
And he said the immediate present is most likely to resemble the immediate past. Okay. And in the immediate past, when societies develop technologies faster than people can adapt to them, mass chaos ensues.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of reminds me of what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why the Jordan Peterson, to go full circle, like he's saying we live in a time of chaos. So.
Yeah, that's actually the word he uses, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and he has a book coming out in January, I think, about chaos and like how to survive chaos, kind of thing.
He's gonna lose that publishing deal. Don't worry. They're gonna shut him down.
Nah, it doesn't matter. Like that's one of my concerns too. Is that you can publish anything. Like you don't have to have you can go through Kindle.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need anything.
Yeah.
Do you have a Kindle at all?
No, I like physical books. I'm not opposed to it because, like, now I'm reading, like, when I'm traveling, I have a book on my iPhone, so I'd rather have a Kindle. Yeah. But I do prefer, if I have the choice, I like to hold a book. I like that.
Oh, for sure. I gave up because it's like I want to read so much things that I have no other option. I really don't. Yeah. But like the books that pop up because they advertise stuff, it's just like. It's just there's some people are reading some really bad stuff. Oh, God. I mean, I don't mean to be too judgy, but like, good Lord, like you get these descriptors, and I'm like, what is this nonsense? Have you ever heard that term, intellectual obesity? Have you ever heard of that before?
No, but I think I understand it immediately.
Yeah, it's just that we choose crap over challenging stuff, like hands down. Like it's really hard for us to challenge ourselves. Because it's been a long day of work, and why about I'm just going to tune out. I'm just going to watch some. I could watch the really powerful documentary on this that will make me change my life for 5 minutes, or I'll watch this stupid movie. So I'm just going to watch the stupid movie.
Yeah. So here's something else I thought about too, like kind of talking about what you were talking about with the building the synapses. Yeah. Synapses is what it's called, right? The building the connections. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Every time. Whatever it happens to be, maybe for you, it's I wanted to watch the intellectual documentary, but instead I just watched something terrible to you. I don't know, something that just wasn't something that you yourself don't perceive as beneficial to you, but you do it anyway.
Let's not name anything. Yeah, let's not.
Right, there you go. Let's just give a soft example. Yeah. There's an apple. I should eat the apple, but I'm gonna eat the bag of chips because it's so rewarding to me. Okay.
There it is.
But yet every time, and this is what we're saying about learning as well, like whether it's a language or an instrument, whatever it happens to be. Every time I choose the apple, I'm actually strengthening that synapse of discipline.
You are.
It's just so fucking rewarding to eat those chips. So
it is.
At least like we don't have any delayed gratification, right? Like we're just so I don't know. Again, I'm not saying like there's a guy doing it, but we as a society have become very conditioned to, or maybe that's just the story of humanity. I don't know. We're very conditioned for the instant gratification. You know.
Yeah. No. It's just easier now, right? It's easier to instantly gratify ourselves than it's ever been, kind of thing. I would imagine, for most of us, for most people, obviously not all. And before I gotta go soon, but it's so weird. I don't have a really Spanish teacher, but I meet this guy like once a week to talk in Spanish for like 2 hours. So it's basically I'm paying someone to be my friend. You know, it's just really weird. It's a weird thing. But anyway, his wife is into advertising, and they're going to some conference about neural advertising. And I was like, terrifying. That sounds terrifying. I was like, I'm out. Like that's not, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like I'm obviously just judging like what that is and drawing my own conclusions.
No,
that sounds horrifying.
I'm going to be radical now. That's your fucking intuition. That's your spirit of humanity saying, this is fucking crazy. We are insane. You understand? You know what I mean? Like, we are losing it, man. Like, I'm going to send you this clip. I mean, I know we send each other stuff. It's hard to get to everything. If you have time to watch it, I think you'll really dig it. I mean, if you get 5 minutes in and you don't dig it, cut it off too. But
all right, cool. God. Have you ever seen that kids movie? It's a Pixar. It's about the little robot alien. Gosh darn it. Oh, this is embarrassing. Anyway, it's about the future, and humanity winds up being asleep. And there are all these fat people riding around in automated cars, kind of like beds, with a screen in their face. And drinking like these awful sugar drinks. Like, and that was what they lived off of. God, what was the name of that movie? It's the robot's name. Anyway, WALL-E. There we go. WALL-E.
Okay, I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's a kid's movie, but and that came out years ago. So I was like, man, because that looks accurate.
These kids' movies there's some deep. Yeah, I love that. That makes me want to watch it actually.
Yeah.
I know you got to go, but I do want to just like just connect with you on that one thing that you said. I remember sitting in my buddy's apartment because now I've got a MacBook and YouTube, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me because I was so proud of myself. I liked when I was like in my mid-20s, I had gotten rid of my TV, which my intuition had told me to do for years because I was like, you're never going to get anything done if you don't get rid of this TV, man. And now I've got like a super TV. But anyway, not literally, I'm saying this MacBook, but so anyway, I didn't have a TV when I was living in Charleston, and I would go to my buddy's house every now and then to watch a program. And I just had this realization because they had a big, nice flat screen, you know, it was really fancy for that time, and they had surround sound and all that. And I was like, wow, I was just trying to think, what are we doing unconsciously with all this? And it's like, you know, kind of talking about that WALL-E thing where they're in their bed. Before long, we're not like, we want it to be so clear it looks like real life, and we want it to sound so real that it's like real life, and we're eventually going to want to feel it like we're actually there, part of it. We're trying to create a complete, I don't know that we're doing this consciously, but we're trying to create a complete false or virtual reality, you know? And then, I don't know, just me being idealistic and fired up as I was like, but we can do that. That we're trying to do, we can do it by cutting off the TV and going out, and life is waiting for you. It's right there. Go do it. The thing that you're imagining, you can do it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's 100% right. And now our stuff looks better than reality. It's horrifying. like the pictures I can take on my phone are ridiculous. I take a phone, I'm like, wow, that's the greatest picture I've ever seen in my life. Like that's not. I shouldn't be able to do that.
No, there's not even a skill in it now, is it? You can just hit a button.
No, like I was next door and took this really dramatic black and white, and it was great. It was just had a barbed wire fence, and then it was like this sign in Spanish saying, you know, passing was forbidden, but like there was the mountains and the sky, but it was all black and white. It looked like it was awesome.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, this is Sunday. I'm just out here screwing around, like just and considering myself Ansel Adams. Yeah. So thanks for that life. That's all we do now. We just think we're all great. All right. Well, I gotta take off, man.
Hey, man. Good talk. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always good to hear from you, man. It feels like we just talked yesterday, and it's been 2 months, hasn't it? Just about.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too, sir.
All right.
See ya.
Later.